Someone reported the arrival of a new Kangchi map in the Dungeon Craft game. The other character was surprised that the person he was talking to was only now finding out about it. Dungeon Craft is an online game where users create their own dungeons. The unidentified man boasted that he had taken first place in the morning. The interlocutor marveled that he had done it alone. One guy complained about the difficulty of the map in the game. Another guy claims that Kangchi is not human, confirming his previous words. He wonders how someone manages to take the top spots on the new maps. He suspects that this player is using a bot or something similar, otherwise it is impossible to explain such speed. The hooded guy sitting next to him asked if he heard what the others were saying. He accused the hero of using bots. The man asked why his interlocutor was always eating at this place. He was surprised because the person he was talking to earns a lot of money. The hooded guy asked his acquaintance if he knew that the place had really good food. Someone took the top spot in the rankings and warned his opponent to be ready. The opponent calmly accepted the challenge. The guy in the hood is confident of his victory, which displeases the person he's talking to. He thinks he's a bot. The guy in the white hooded sweatshirt looked somewhere thoughtful. He decided that maybe they weren't so wrong. The hero fights a huge winged dragon, performing combo attacks. His level increases during the battle. He enjoys the process. A dark-haired, hooded guy with a brooding gaze, immersed in thoughts about the world of the game and map creation. It's overcast outside. An unknown character wishes you a good day, the key. Guy in the white shirt reminds the other guy in the hoodie to remember to treat him tomorrow. The guy in the hoodie agrees and says goodbye. The boy walked down the street, pondering his obsession with the game. He wondered what he would say if he were asked about the reason for such a strong obsession. The young man reflects on the fact that he can't control anything in the real world. He reflected on how easy things were for him in games. At the same time, everything seems impossible to him in real life. The hero reflects on the ineffectiveness of telephone poles. He confesses that even such things are beyond his power to move. He pondered how easily he could change the shape and size of someone, if they were in the game. He imagined doing it with a single click of the mouse. Soon, a truck-san appears, who surely wants to get the job done. A guy in a hoodie stopped in the middle of the street. Turning around, he regretfully thought that reality was different. Even an object as large as a truck can't just be taken away at will. Truck-san was getting closer and closer, and it seemed to be the end. But suddenly, Truck-san stopped abruptly. He must have a short workday today. The boy was frightened. He thought he was about to be transported to another world. The man in the car was yelling, accusing someone of attempting suicide. He angrily asked where the man was looking. The guy pointed, his finger to the side, expressing his displeasure. He asked the man to look at the traffic light signal. The traffic light has a green signal for pedestrians. The truck driver was surprised to notice the green signal and wondered when the traffic light had time to change. Our hero was overwhelmed with a sense of frustration. A young man ponders how convenient it would be to change real life like a game. He looks at the construction site and imagines how things could be simpler and more convenient. A guy in a gray hoodie ponders his possibilities. He wants to create the world as he sees it. The crane cable pulled sharply taut, and there was a scraping, sound of metal. The crane hook jerked violently. The crane has broken and its load is about to fall. Someone shouts, urging people to get out of the way. The metal beam was rapidly falling downward. A girl with a ball in her hand stood in the street and looked up, and a young man noticed the danger. He was stunned and numb with surprise. However, a little girl with a ball in her hands looks up in surprise. It seemed to be over, but the young man's hand appears on the horizon. There was blood everywhere. The ball flew off to the side. The girl was hit hard and flew off. She fell to the floor. The frightened girl was sitting on the ground next to the ball. She made quiet noises expressing fear. As it turned out, instead of a truck, a construction material went to work, thus killing our hero. The wounded young man was breathing heavily. Breathing heavily, the young man stared intently into the distance. He asked himself, "See? Breathing heavily." The hero realizes what's happening. This is real life. Soon the young man found himself in an unknown space. Young man woke up in an unknown place, wonderingly asking himself, "Where am I?" The surrounding darkness engulfed the hero. He felt as if he had fallen into a black hole. He wondered if he was still alive. Soon, someone addressed our hero, calling him mortal. A giant dark creature with 3 eyes and a glowing smile asks, "A guy how the hell he wants Oblomon?" The young man, surrounded by radiance, asks with defiance who is before him. He also wonders what this place, which is called the Hell of Oblivion, is all about. The unknown entity stated that death is merely a means to reincarnation. The young man was stunned by what he saw. He said in a daze, "What? Looking at the young man, some entity suggested that he bring back his memories. He asks indignantly what it's all about. He demands a simpler explanation. The creature addresses the uninformed. It urges the young man to open his eyes. The young man with dark hair abruptly opens his eyes, shrouded in a violet glow. He asks excitedly what he is doing. Soon the young man opened his eyes abruptly. The young man's eyes widened dramatically. The young man with gray hair and horns shrieked, standing up abruptly from the table. He jumped up so fast that the chair thudded backward. The dark-haired young man exclaimed in surprise. The young man with pointy ears looked around. He seemed to be in the castle. He looked at the reflection in the window with surprise. This man, young man with horns dressed in his school uniform, looks at his hands in surprise. Not believing his eyes, he wonders, is he really alive? He wonders if he is in another world, as he is in the anime. He denies this possibility, feeling shocked. Soon, he felt something new. It was a feeling that interested him. The young man with blue hair stares at his hands in amazement, realizing the reality of what is happening. He is sure that this is not a dream. The young man was thinking about something. Our hero woke up in an unknown place and wondered where he was. After looking around, he realized that he was in an ancient castle. The young man asks himself in confusion, "Who am I?" Someone asked the young man what he was muttering to himself. Suddenly, the young man felt a magical energy and looked in surprise at its source. Suddenly, an unknown girl pierced our hero with her sword. He coughed up blood in shock and bewilderment. A girl with white hair and horns attacks furiously, waving a glowing weapon. The girl mockingly asks the wounded guy if he thinks he's going to die. The guy, coughing up blood, clutches the wound on his stomach. The young man clutched his chest in intense pain. He realized that his sternum had been punctured. He, coughing up blood, tried to comprehend what had happened. The demon girl asked. With surprise what the interlocutor meant, she just admits to hating and intending to get rid of the guy. The young man exclaimed in surprise. Frightened, with bloody lips, he wondered if she really wanted to kill him. But at that moment, someone interrupted the attack, knocking the sword out of the girl's hands. The girl was annoyed that Tarmi had gotten in her way again. She reproaches him for getting in her way again. Tarmi grinned at his sister. He rebuked Caldera's inappropriate attitude toward his brother. The wounded and frightened young man was perplexed as to what was happening. With a bloody mouth, he wondered who had appeared now. Poor Kella. Caldera has been bullying you again. Today. Tarmi holds something out to Kella and offers her a drink. Kella assumed he had been given a potion and drank it. He breathed out in relief, realizing that he had been given exactly what he needed. Tarmi wonders what's going on. He notices with a sly smile the unusual behavior of his interlocutor. At that moment, Kella experienced a shock, his eyes going wide. With something, he just threw up a purple substance. He fell to his knee, writhing in pain. Kella grabbed his throat, feeling a burning sensation. He was in severe pain and fever, suspecting poisoning. Caldera is concerned about her brother's condition. She'd like to kill him personally. Super family, of course. Tarmi has been watching Kel and notices that he is in pain, but probably won't die. He concludes that the prescription was unsuccessful. Kella grimaced, clutching his throat in incredible pain. He didn't understand why he had to suffer so much. The door rattled open, letting in a bright light. The demon king Helkalden has returned from hunting heroes. The demons noticed the return of their ruler. His return was earlier than planned. Kella clutches at her throat and coughs up blood, questioning something about her father in horror. The man in dark clothes threw his head back sharply. A demon, with blue hair and horns appeared. His name is Helkalden, the demon king. He hears disgusting sounds and wonders about their source. Kella looks away fearfully. He realizes he sees the demon king. Caldera immediately apologized to her father, but in response, he told his offspring to shut up. The moans of the weak spread throughout the demon king's castle were considered a disgrace. The demoness, in pain, apologizes to her father. Tarmi gasped as the king held him by the throat. He struggled to whisper apologies and pleas for mercy. Kella wondered who the other two people were to him. The demon king stared intently at the wounded young man. The young man realized with horror and incomprehension that he might be his father. A horned demon in luxurious clothing has declared that he wishes to hear only two sounds in his castle. One of those sounds is the birth of a great demon. Kella mentally tried to stop the lord, but he couldn't get a word out. And the second sound the demon king wanted to hear was the sound of an honorable death. The young man's eyes went wide with fear of death. A loud scream echoed in the background of the city. The father finished his business and went on his way, while his children lay dying. Well, our hero couldn't figure out what was going on. I think he was on the verge of death. So, in summary, our hero is reborn in another world. He reflected on his origins, bitterly recognizing that he was the son of a scoundrel. Kella breathes heavily, gritting his teeth in pain. He cursed the situation he was in. He was extremely dissatisfied with the situation. It turned out that of all the possible options, they were opposed by the Demon King. In the flashback, a crying Kella calls for his mom. He complains that Caldera poked him in the eye with a fork. The white-haired woman looks sympathetically at the boy, thinking about the fact that someone must have been hurt. Crying, Kella accuses Tarmi of poisoning his food, pondering the actions. Of those two, the woman made a decision. Demoness was advised to respond as any demon would. Demoness, with a sly expression on her face, ponders the advice. A crying Kella turns to the horned girl. He is afraid that if he does something, Caldera and Tarm might kill him. In that case, she suggested that Kel kill his enemies. She added that it should be done before she died. Kella was shocked and cried. He stared dazedly at the woman, unable to hold back the tears. The hero's father killed 12 of his brothers and became the great demon king. If someone tries to kill the hero, he must be prepared for the consequences. Suddenly, the woman looked at the boy with a sly smile. She advised him to kill them first. Soon, a beautiful dagger appeared behind the woman. In the same second, she pierced the boy's body with that blade. She told me to be like all demons. It turned out to be Kella's mother. She wondered if he understood her words. Soon the young man woke up, letting out a loud scream. The silver-haired girl who had been watching him recoiled in fright. The girl wondered if the young man was awake. He was breathing heavily, coming to his senses. Kella realized he had been reborn into a new body. Everything he had seen before was a memory of Kel Kalden. He woke up, thinking about something. The wounds on his body were completely healed. Kella has incredible regenerative powers. The girl informed Lord Kella that he had slept for quite a while this time. She informed the young gentleman that a family dinner was coming up and asked him to get up. He sleepily agreed. Rin, a personal servant, is introduced to us, the audience of Choco Manhwa. Kella has always been much more timid than his siblings, so he was constantly scorned. Jif asks the young man to put on the clothes he has prepared for the party. The young man grudgingly replies that his brother is being dressed by a servant. In that case, she offered her help in getting dressed, but Kella immediately refused to help. She was informed that today's assignment was to clean the blanket. Surprised, he reminded her that cleaning the quilt was his maid's job. Rin was sleeping peacefully on the bed. Kella looked at her unhappily, believing she had taken his place. Kella found a broken doll instead of the expected person. He recognized the doll as Rin. Our hero was adjusting his tie and thinking about Kel. He resented that the Demon King's son had allowed himself to be intimidated by a servant. The young man stares intently at himself. He says the name Kella in agreement. Clenching his fist, the young man didn't understand how one could behave like this. All this time, the hero has been helplessly bullied. His present life is not much different from his past. The young man was well aware that the weak were doomed to die. The entire royal family was gathered around the table, and Kella himself had already arrived for dinner. His father looked at Kel with displeasure when he noticed his tardiness. He reproached Kel for his unpunctuality. The young man felt a strong aura coming from his father. He thought that this father was the Demon King, and for good reason. In any case, he apologized for being late, sitting down at the table. Suddenly, Caldera kicked something to the side. It was a knife that stabbed into Kel's leg. The young man gritted his teeth because it wasn't every day you got knives thrown at you. Caldera told her brother to eat more so he would have more energy. Kella felt fear. He feared the consequences if anyone found out his true identity. Either way, he thanked his sister. Let what will be, the young man thought, and presented the spoonful of food to his mouth. Suddenly, our hero felt incredibly sick. He looked suspiciously at the food and thought it was poisoned. Tarmi informed him that the soup was made especially for his favorite brother. With a slight smile, he asked if the soup tasted good. Kella nervously confirmed that the dish tasted good, just like shit. Kella realized that this trio of demons was going to give him more trouble. Kella said angrily that these demons were not his family. His face showed disgust and distaste for them. At this point, the young man decides he will not tolerate any more abuse. He realizes that something must be done. The character always wanted to achieve something on his own. With this attitude, he was recognized as the strongest card designer in the game. But when it came to real life, the teens bullied him. The guy helplessly took the blow, realizing there was nothing he could do. Remembering his death, the young man vows that he will never again allow himself to die so helplessly. Kella stared intently at his not-real family, his gaze expressing displeasure. He picked up the plate of poisoned food and called out to his sister. The second he did, he threw the fucking food at the girl to try out the food Tarma had prepared. The girl was out of her mind. Kella, turning to Tarma, pulls out a bloody dagger. The young man threw the dagger at Tarma, saying it was a gift from Caldera. All of these actions surprised the Demon King very much. Kella turned to his father. He didn't understand why demons would get together and have a happy family dinner. The young man angrily declared that from now on, everyone would eat separately. He scattered the food all over the table in a rage. The entire trio was extremely surprised by this statement. Kella bared his teeth in a furious grimace. He turned to the demons with a challenge, asking them to see who was stronger. The tall tower of the castle was pointing into the sky. The young man felt satisfied. Rin, noticing his strange expression, became concerned. Despite the fact that the hero overturned the dinner table and was beaten to a pulp, he does not regret what he did. Sitting on his head, Kella marveled at the speed of his recovery. The young man felt a surge of some strange power. The young man may have realized his true nature. After all, he is the son of the Demon King. He reflected on the power of some ability. Soon the girl reminds Lord Kell of an upcoming lesson on demonic power. Kell is annoyed by the constant reminders and orders. The girl was perplexed at the young gentleman's behavior. The young man thought about the lesson on demonic power. He sat with his legs tucked up and looked away. Based on Kella's recollection, it's one of the worst moments he's ever experienced. Still, the young man decided there was no reason to skip class. Lady Caldera and Lord Tarm will not be joining us today. Seeing the formation of the students, the teacher notes the presence of the others. Students confirm readiness. Kella noticed the whole group staring at him. From Kella's recollection, he recognized these bullies. He remembered the redhead forcing Kella to do something. Since Kella had already refused, the redhead said there was nothing he could do to help him now, and at that moment he enveloped his hand in violet energy. The guy grinned and attacked Kella, saying it was just a lesson. Kella fell to the ground, writhing in pain. The group of demons laughed gloatingly. They are true demons among their own kind. The brother and sister watched Kella arrogantly, enjoying the bullying. It seemed that to them, bullying Kella was just a game. The girl questioned the methods of the lessons over her brother. The redhead was surprised. At this moment, she asked to demonstrate her true abilities without holding back. As a princess, she allows it. The red-haired young man thanked Lady Caldera. By and large, for all the demons here, Kella was a whipping toy, and neither tears nor pleas could stop the abuse. Beaten with a bloody face, Kella was unwilling to fight. He begged for the fight to stop. Gritting his teeth, our hero thought of Kell, who wasn't weak at all. Clenching his fist, the young man said he had a good heart. At that moment, Kella realized that everything was going to change from now on. He intends to use his new power properly. The teacher announced the beginning of the lesson. Then he asked who had sparred in the previous session. The redhead mentioned Kella and himself. That suggestion didn't please the other man very much. The redhead thought he should have addressed Kella by adding Sir to her name, but that only seemed to piss our guy off. The redhead apologized, but Kella was already angry, calling this cuckold son of a chicken. In any case, it was decided to have a second sparring session. The two young men, the red-haired one and Kella, prepared for the fight under the supervision of the spectators and the teacher. The horned mage grinned and wondered if his opponent was ready. Violet energy enveloped his hands. It looks like young Master Kell is going to be beaten almost to death again. Someone asked Rudy to go easy on the young master or he'll cry again. While the others laughed, Kella looked at his opponent contemptuously. Rude wryly displayed his strength, showing that Kella was no match for him. In fact, our hero and Kell had a lot in common. He lowered his gaze thoughtfully. Everyone literally mocked him. The protagonist recalls that he had no money or power, and everyone looked down on him. The background shows silhouettes of people, perhaps those who treated him with disdain. Young man, now a demon, stated that it was all in the past. Rude was surprised. Noticing the great magical power, he wonders how Kell got so much mana. Kella exuded a powerful blue aura that amazed those around him. Rude cried out fearfully. He couldn't move because of the pressure. Young has decided to go easy on his opponent today. He's only going to strike once. Rude took a powerful hit and screamed. The attack was successful, and Rude sealed himself into the ground with incredible force. The demons reacted to the fight in surprise. Rude couldn't react in any way. the teacher, assumed in horror that Rude was dead. Rude was bleeding on the ground. Kella asked the defeated redhead what he had said earlier. Rude was outraged and said he was the son of the Demon King. The wounded redhead apologizes to the young man. He calls him Sir Kella. Kella menacingly warned someone not to make mistakes in his presence. A group of demons are excited about what happened and wonder how it happened. One of the students is sure it was the work of a loser named Kella. The young man turned to his teacher. The teacher was frightened. He asks the startled teacher if the lesson should continue. Rin was surprised. This was the first time she had seen Kelsan like this. She found his behavior very strange. This whole situation was also noticed by the Demon King himself, standing on the balcony. He looked at his son. Something was strange about him. The Demon King still can't figure out what's wrong with him. In Hel Khaldun's castle, someone can't forgive Kel. Soldera resents being splashed in the face with poisoned soup. Tarmi, who is giving her a healing bath, asks her to calm down and concentrate on her treatment. The young man realizes that he doesn't have the same fast regeneration as Kella. Caldera wonders indignantly at his younger brother's unique regeneration ability. Tarmi suggested that Kella seemed to have changed. He remembered the moment when Kella had gotten angry and said he wouldn't eat lunch with them anymore. All of this, of course, surprised the rest of the family very much. Still, it amused my father greatly. Tarme saw his father smile for the first time in his life. This, of course, puzzled Tarma very much. Caldera was outraged that her father smiled over such a trifle, especially since it was related to Kella. Tarmi agrees that what is happening is not normal. The sister asks with annoyance what her brother wants to say. Tarmi turns to Caldera, assuming the latter would rather die than join forces with him. The girl reacted with surprise and incomprehension. Tarmi suggested that her sister stop their fight for the time being and take care of Kella together. This idea appealed to my sister very much. She appreciated her little brother's idea. Bottom line, this couple decided to kill Kel. All of this has to happen before someone gets his father's attention. Soon Kella was watching something intently. He saw a monstrous, demonic creature. The teacher presented the students with a picture of the previous Demon King, Turk Khaldun. Kella noticed that the previous king looked rather demonic. Sir Turk was the strongest in his time. The teacher, pointing to the image of Sir Turk, speaks of his death because of the dastardly plan of the Celestial Guild. Since then, self-serving guilds have been gathering at the borders of the kingdom. Information about the guilds surrounding the Demon Kingdom lingered in Kella's mind. Not too long ago, Kella was pondering about a certain guild whose members were causing him negative emotions. Looking out over the expanse of the kingdom, the young man lamented that he couldn't escape from the castle. Kella thought with despair that he was going to have to live here forever. But what if things could change? The teacher reported that some scum, backed by a large heavenly guild, were preparing to attack the kingdom. King Hel called to destroy the enemies. The teacher encourages the class to be diligent in the battle drill. In the demon assembly hall, the disciples shouted, "For the honor of the demons!" At this point, Kella hesitated. The scene takes us to the tower of the castle. While on top of the tower, the hero contemplated an escape. He wondered what would happen. If he stayed, most likely, he is now possibly in danger, as he could die at any moment. Kella asked Rin if he remembered correctly that their father was leaving in 3 days. Rin confirmed the information. The young man turned around upon hearing the question. Kella announced that the castle had one weakness. The girl with gray hair and horns was surprised by this statement. The two demons were discussing the lack of a map architect to help them utilize terrain features in battle. The guild uses the abandoned areas around it to attack. The young man decided to use the time until the next expedition to map the area. He contemplates his father destroying all his enemies. Kella decides to help her father in this endeavor. The young man decided it was time for a real escape. Kella realized he was in a place other than reality. He realized that he could create a map at will. At this moment, Rin was ordered to set up a secret office in the castle's basement. Rin was surprised by the order. Now the young man needs a secret place to work so his father won't find out. The scene changes to a dungeon. The Demon King sat surrounded by pink flames, he thought. Kella would never escape his field of vision. He thought about Kella not being able to get out of his sight. Surrounded by an aura, the king decided to act before it was too late. He demanded confirmation. Presently, Kella asked in surprise what it was. The Demon King's son was shown the office he had ordered. Kella resented the shabby appearance of the office. Rin justifies that she did the best she could, acting in secret. The angry young man demands that she do the right thing. At that moment, Kella realized that he was being extremely cruel to Rin. Meanwhile, the girl thinks Kella has changed a lot and has become scary. Suddenly, she had a thought. Rin even wondered if Kella had gotten cooler and if she should work here. But Kella immediately ordered coffee to be brought to him. The girl hurried to fulfill the order. Kella loudly demands coffee and the door closes with a clatter. The young man, leaning over the table, noticed that the girl had already left. Looking at the map, the young man noticed that there were no hopes or dreams in the Demon King's castle. Kella decided it was time to create his own map. While our hero was creating his escape plan, Rin ran down the hallway in search of coffee. But suddenly it hit her. What does the word coffee mean? It was the first time she had ever heard of it. Soon someone called out to Rin. The girl was surprised to see the Demon King in the basement. She greeted the Demon King fearfully, who asked where Kella was. He inquired about Kella's whereabouts. Rin immediately began to sweat nervously and stutter. The Demon King demands an answer from the girl. Rin mentally excuses herself that Kella asked her to keep it a secret. The scene changes to Kella's room. Kella was leaning over a map, scribbling something, enjoying it. The young man has probably entered another world and considers himself lucky. This world is very much like a game. Kella marks a spot on the map, mulling something over. He enthusiastically takes great pleasure in creating maps. Soon the door began to open. Kella recoiled in surprise at the sudden flash of magic. King is surprised. Kella has set up a secret office. He rebukes his son for not reporting the creation of the office. Kella was greatly surprised. What was his father doing here? In the same second, the father stabbed his son in the stomach, piercing him through. The Demon King issues a challenge, calling on his son to fight him face to face. Kella emits blood and calls out to her father. He experiences intense pain and wonders if it is the power of the great Demon King. The young man is sure if this continues, he will definitely die. In that case, the young man immediately showed his father the map with the markings. The horned demon holding his son asked him what he should see there. Kella thinks that the outskirts of the castle are a disadvantageous position for a guild. Addle. He looks at the map, where the castle and probably the enemy's location are marked. Kella ponders the implications of changing the landscape according to the diagram he drew. He shows the map with the markings made. The young man is sure that this will be a great help in the battles to come. The king looked intently at the map. Soon the king pulled his hand out of his son's body. Horny asked the man lying on the floor why he had secretly created an office. The young man assumed his father wouldn't let him help. Kella showed his father the map. The demon hesitates after completing something. The son of the great Demon King wants to help in the destruction of heaven for his father. The man looks at his son carefully. Kella is hurt and tense. Rin was startled to hear Kella say something disrespectful to the great Demon King. The king asks how long it will take. The young man asks back in horror, "What?" The Demon King asked how. Many days Kella thought it would take to complete the map. The young man with the bloody hand bent over the map, noting that even a determined man could understand it. He decided that 5 would be enough. The king reflected on the fact that heaven would gather in 3 days. He stated that the interlocutor card would soon become useless. In that case, the young man stated that he could complete the task in 5 hours. This statement surprised the king very much. Kella, with a bloody face pointing at the map, stated that the construction could be completed in 3 days before the battle with heaven and asked for command of the plan. The king stared intently in the direction of his son. He's thinking about something. In that case, Demon offered to finish the map. Still, Horned doubted his son's words. He told Kell if the map wasn't ready, he would tear him up along with his map. The young man confidently replied in the affirmative, everything would be ready. Soon, the king left Kella's office. The young man with the bloodied face said in satisfaction that he had managed it. Kella crossed his arms over his chest with a groan. The young man fell to his knees, spitting blood. He pondered if his father wanted to kill him if he proved to be useless. Rin, on the other hand, looking at the young lord, was surprised that Kella was able to convince the great Demon King. Suddenly, however, Kella angrily asks Rin to take him to the nurse's station. Rin agrees. Kella showed the girl the finished map, which he finished in 5 hours as promised. The troops of the Demon King's castle have assembled and begun extensive construction. Mages created illusory magic outside the construction site. Terrain has been changed so no one will notice. It was like Kella was creating a new map in the game. Everything was going according to his plan. The action takes place at the Paradise Guild gathering place. Someone is very surprised by what is happening. Hermeson, the head of Heaven's Guild, was surprised to learn of the transformation of the surrounding area. A man in a blue robe announces that a deception using illusory magic has been uncovered. Hermeson asks what they are up to. The black-haired guy suggests attacking and stopping these demons. The gray-haired man replied firmly. No. He grinned, though, and said it was useless to do it this late. A strongest unit has formed in Talua. Anukan is closing in. Talua began forming Tulkan, her strongest squad decades ago. The elite squad is finally formed. The old man is convinced that the enemy cannot defeat an elite unit that has been preparing for decades in just 3 days. He is also convinced that the great demon king Hel will be defeated. The red dragon flies over the army that the old man said would reach the demon king's castle in 2 days. A warrior riding a monster has declared an end to the centuries-long reign of the great demon king's lineage. He hopes it will finally come to an end. A red-haired girl and her comrade in arms riding a bull lead an attack on the demon king's castle. They swiftly rush forward. She admires General Kilman's leadership skills as she watches him in the sky, on a dragon. A guy looks at a girl named Shreels with disbelief and asks if they are sure of the success of the hunt for the demon king. She confidently proclaimed the superiority of her Talcan squad over the other guilds. They swore to kill the great demon king. The tower of the castle is shown. King realized that Kella wasn't bluffing about the card. The demon king admits that things aren't perfect anymore. Glancing at his trembling hand, he realized that his body had reached its limit, and he could no longer be fastidious. The king has realized that tomorrow is going to be a big day. He is going to deal with heaven. Demon mages move items with magic, as time is short. The overseer was pushing the slaves, making them work faster. Kella and Rin watch all of this from the window, noting that everything is going according to plan. Kella noted that creating the map feels different in real life than in the game. While indoors, he realized his ability to change the landscape at will. Kella decided to wait for the battle between hell and heaven. The young man was anticipating the big day tomorrow. Soon the day of battle arrived. The elite Tulkan army had arrived. The leader thanked the squad for coming. Tulkan's squad is ready to go. Kilman encourages to. The gray-haired man agreed and called for an immediate trip to the Demon King's castle. Kilman, raising his fist, urged, Tulkan to victory. A glowing object has appeared on the map. Hermison, surrounded by guards, was surprised by the sudden appearance of a magical artifact. Kilman asks with a startled expression on his face what's going on. He warned of a surprise attack and ordered to take up defenses. A powerful stream of energy crashed to the ground. Someone was hurt and screamed, trying to crawl away. Kilman looked in amazement at the approaching army. The young man in light-colored clothes used magic, but what the old man saw was impossible. Dark blob of energy formed between them. The one they weren't expecting in any way finally showed up. Everyone was surprised by the appearance of the Demon King himself, Khaldun. A little earlier, the son had reported to his father that he had removed the barrier hiding them from celestial observation. The young man learned that he could now use teleportation magic stealthily. The king, on the other hand, was contemplating teleporting to Heaven's base. Caldera yells at her father to stop. She asks if he's teleporting to an enemy base. Tarm in turn warns her father of the danger. Suddenly, the father looked at his children and asked, do they really doubt the power of the Demon King? Caldera denies it, with terror in her eyes. Tarma says that her father has not yet fully recovered. The king demanded silence and stated that he would make the final decision. He will take action tomorrow from the center of Heaven's base. The Demon King, engulfed in blue flames, swore to kill everyone. The enemy accuses the Demon King of being mean to him for his suddenness. An enraged Kilman promised that the man would regret coming. He called himself Talcan. The commander orders the Talcan squad to launch a full-scale offensive. A king with a serious look radiates blue energy. A powerful blast of blue energy shook the ground. Meanwhile, Kella stood on the roof and a crowd of demons stood below. Kella announced the gathering of all forces. The young man announced that all preparations were complete. In the same second, he gave the order to attack. The demons rushed into battle with fury. The demonic castle troops are attacking, and now the humans are trying to stand up to them. A monster rushed from under the ground of the earth and attacked the group. One of them noticed the monsters appearing from below. The group was ambushed. The brown-haired guy ordered them to stop the demons from reaching the heavens. Kella clenched his hand into a fist. He looked down, thinking about important things. The young man smirked. Everything was going according to plan. Soon, Caldera arrived. She had finally found Kella. She rebukes her brother for the act and warns him that things will not go according to plan. Tarmi tells Kella that he's sorry, but he was out of line. Kella, grinning her teeth, says the names Caldera and Tarme. A gray-haired man with burning eyes using green energy declared that Kel didn't belong here. At that moment, the young man was pierced by his brother's sharp weapon. The pain was terrible. Kella cried out in pain as the tip of the weapon slammed into his chest. Tarmi said it was Caldera's turn now. Caldera rushed forward determinedly, despite her brother's recovery speed. With one swing of her sword, she chops off her brother's head, and after that, he won't be able to recover. After that, the two bastards started laughing evilly. Kella was stunned. Could it really have been the end? Whether it's the end or not, how Kayla's headless body pitched forward, tumbling down from the castle wall. It landed with a sickening thud on the stone below, the severed head rolling a short distance away. A faint sound escaped the head's lips. Above, Tarm and Seldara watched, triumphant. Tarm declared Kayla finally dealt with, suggesting they rejoin their father. But as he turned, a sudden flash of pain erupted from his side. Seldora had stabbed him with a wickedly familiar dagger. She commended his quick reflexes, though they weren't quick enough. Tarm recognized the blade, sputtering that it was there. Mother's forbidden weapon. Seldora sneered, dismissing the rules. They were demons, and weapons were for using. Tarm stared in disbelief. Seldora's ambition shone as she declared her intent. Kill Tarm here, and she be the sole successor left. Enraged, Tarm lunged, screaming his intent to kill her first. Seldora dodged, taunting that it was over the moment the knife struck and their deadly dance began. On the ground, Kayla's severed head faced the sky. His fading consciousness registered. The irony. How can they be so perfectly, predictably demonic? They were exactly as he'd imagined. His body lay still, a broken puppet. Then, Rin appeared, catching the lifeless form, preventing it from shattering completely. She frantically tried to align the head with the neck, ignoring the gruesome reality. Meanwhile, the main battle raged. Following Kella's earlier instructions, the demon forces surged towards a secret pathway, aiming to flank the Heaven Army. The Heaven soldiers realized the tactic, but their commanders rallied them, ordering, "No quarter given." The demons charged heedlessly, knowing there was no retreat, honor their only motivation as the clash intensified. Huckle Dunn faced a charging dragon, easily deflecting its fiery breath. He remarked it had been a while since facing such an attack before leaping onto the beast, tearing it apart with overwhelming force. Kilman, the Talkin leader, roared in, fury at the loss of his mount, Piley. He ordered his soldiers to unleash everything they had against the Demon King. Huckle Dunn stood impassive amidst the barrage, wondering if they'd managed to scratch him. A soldier yelled that it wasn't over yet. Blue energy flared around Helkeldan, his form beginning to shift and grow. He transformed, revealing his terrifying final form. The Heaven soldiers recognized it from legends, a sight confirming the demon King's true power. Fear paralyzed the ranks. Commander Sriles desperately urged them to focus, though she herself trembled, unable to stop shivering before such might. No wonder the others couldn't move. Helkaldan surveyed the battlefield. He acknowledged the plan's flaw. Teleporting directly into the enemy base left no path for retreat. That was the downside, but he hadn't mentioned it. The Demon King doesn't consider escape routes. Perhaps Kella had considered it too. Regardless, it wasn't important now. He just needed to kill them all. Kilman yelled that Helkaldan was going all out, ordering his men to put their lives on the line. The Demon King's power gathered, promising annihilation. Back in a hidden passage, Rin held Kella's head to his body, pleading desperately. A flashback intruded, Kella instructing a disgusted Rin to reattach his severed arm during regeneration experiments. The arm healed though scarred. Rin asked if it was done. Kella confirmed it worked, then shocked her by saying his head was next. He explained the need to test it, asking her to cut carefully, ignoring her terrified refusal. The experimentation concluded. Kayla then instructed Rin to subtly inform Seldara's servant that he planned to kill Seldara during the battle. Rin, wide-eyed, nervously carried out the order, telling the stern servant Kayla's supposed plan, emphasizing he'd act while the Demon King was occupied. The servant reacted predictably with fury. Rin slyly suggested this was Seldara's perfect chance to slice off Kayla's head, guaranteeing his death regardless of regeneration. The flashback faded. Rin cradled Kayla's head, cursing his crazy plan. It worked, but it meant nothing if he died. She called him an idiot. Kayla's eyes snapped open. "Who?" he asked coolly. "Are you calling an idiot?" Rin recoiled in shock. Kayla assessed. Himself. The Mani-imbued dagger had slowed his recovery, but he'd survived just like he'd planned. It's all according to plan, he thought, a bloody grin spreading across his face. Kayla smirked, blood staining his grin, asserting that surviving was all that mattered. His plan continued. Rin stared, tears welling up before launching herself at him. Then, pausing, he held up a glowing pink mana, formally undoing the servant contract between them and granting Rin her freedom. Rin looked stunned, whispering his name. Kella explained that with the contract gone, she should live life as she wished. Rin looked utterly shocked as Kella turned and walked away. A memory surfaced for Rin, a younger Kella asking her to be his friend instead of just a servant. Tears streamed down her face again. Suddenly resolute, she chased after him, screaming for him to take her along, refusing his command not to follow. Kella retorted that she'd only get in the way. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, a battered Killman faced the monstrous Helkul Dun, calling him a monster. Helkul Dun stood impassively, wounds weeping blood but seemingly ignored. Killman wondered how he could still stand. This was truly the great demon himself. Defeated, Killman admitted he couldn't win against such power. Helkul Dun surveyed the carnage, thinking that no human could stop this disaster. He stood silently for a moment, noting the near annihilation of the heaven forces and glancing around, the heavy losses among his own soldiers. His thoughts briefly touched on Seldara and Tarm, and even Kayla, guessing they weren't coming after all. He dismissed the thought. This was his fight from the start. He gathered his last remaining mana, preparing to end everything. Kayla and Rin sprinted through a dark passage. Kayla spotted the exit ahead, the escape route beyond the castle surveillance. Freedom was within reach. Suddenly, Rin cried out a warning as blinding light and crackling dark energy erupted before them. They recoiled, sensing the strong scent of blood. Hooded figures emerged from the shadows. The lead figure remarked that Helkul Dun was also trying to evacuate his children, confirming they knew Kella and Rin were coming and had hidden there just in case. Kella cursed. They placed a surveillance team at the secret exit, so Heaven knew about the construction all along. The mages declared no member of the Demon King's family would live and launch their attack. Rin leaped forward, shielding Kella, determined to hold them off. Kella protested, asking what she could possibly do alone. Rin fiercely declared her priority was protecting him, her master. Kella internally recalled Rin's limited abilities, simple defense magic, and barely any offensive capability. He realized she planned to sacrifice herself. Rin urged him to hurry and escape. Kella grabbed her arm, yanking her behind him as she protested, telling her not to act all strong. If she insisted on following, she shouldn't die in front of him. It would just piss him off. Rin stared, momentarily stunned. One of the mages mocked Kella, saying he had no escape now, recalling intel that middle-class magic was sufficient for the weakest prince. Kella clenched his fist, thinking how timid he used to be, never showing his true capabilities, meaning their intel was hilariously outdated. Rin looked on in amazement. The mage, launching an attack, sputtered in disbelief, thinking Kella's mana was low rank. Kella moved swiftly, slamming the mage into the ground. He sneered, advising the mage to check his sources next time. Maybe try Wikidemonpedia? He grabbed the downed mage's face, unleashing another blast, leaving him broken. Rin gasped. Amazi defeated a heaven mage so easily. The other mages were stunned, stating Kella should be a powerless wimp. Kella repeated that their information was wrong. Seeing no choice, the remaining mages decided to use the Light Spear spell, a technique pooling all their mana into one attack, knowing failure meant their deaths. Rin screamed for Kayla to get back as the spears formed, striking her as she shielded him. Kayla found himself unable to move, caught in the spell's binding effect. Rin apologized, feeling she couldn't protect him. The mages gasped, believing it worked, declaring it Kayla's end. One mage then suggested they deserved a reward, asking if Rin wouldn't be fun to play with. Rin cursed them, declaring she knew everything they'd done to demons. The mage silenced her, holding a blade near. Kayla grit his teeth. Even humans here treated others like objects? The mage turned, intent on killing the Demon King's little baby first. Kayla felt despair, the exit so close. Enraged, he was nearly there. The mage lunged, shouting for Kayla to die. Rin screamed his name. Kayla froze. A strange feeling washed over him. Something was coming. Kayla remained frozen, stunned by the Light Spear's spell. A peculiar feeling washed over him. Someone powerful was approaching. Suddenly, a spectral, purple-tinged figure appeared before him, the presence of his father, Helkul Dun. Kayla wondered, shocked, if the battle was already over. The apparition of Helkul Dun acknowledged that Kayla's plan might now be ruined. Helkul Dun's voice seemed distant as he explained that he had fought countless times and considered every possibility. Kayla, confused as to what he meant, his father, continued, describing Seldar as selfishness and Tarm's lack of true ambition. Impatient, Kayla demanded to know how his father was even there. Helkul Dun revealed the unique ability of a demon king to pass his mana down to his bloodline just before dying. Kayla reeled from the implication. Helkul Dun stated that, although briefly, he had seen Kayla as the best candidate to be a proper demon king. Kayla frantically denied it, insisting his father was mistaken. Helkulden declared his intention, preparing to pass down all the mana left in his body directly to his son, Kayla Khaldun. Kayla screamed, telling him to stop. Helkulden addressed his son one last time, instructing him not to mourn, but to embrace the ruthlessness of a true demon. Miles away on the ravaged battlefield, Helkulden's imposing final form finally dissipated. Commander Sriles gasped his name, declaring the Demon King dead. She acknowledged General Killman's sacrifice had made. It possible, tears welling for a fallen leader. The remaining Heaven soldiers echoed the news in disbelief, then erupted in cheers proclaiming Helkulden's death and their victory. They believed they were the victors now. Back in the passage, Kayla cried out as immense power surged into him. The light spear's spell, unable to contain the influx, shattered. Rin stared, astonished that Kayla's mana had dispersed the attack. The remaining Heaven mages wondered frantically about the sudden, massive increase in his power. Kayla managed. A weak, pained laugh, processing the influx of power and the undeniable confirmation that Helkaldon was truly dead. His escape plan had worked, just not entirely as he had planned. The mages, realizing they were out of mana, decided retreat was their only option. Kella pushed Rin protectively behind him. He felt an overwhelming void of darkness. The power Hell had gifted him, warning the mages not to come closer. He coldly asked them what vile things they had said to Rin earlier, dark energy swirling violently around him. With chilling certainty, he declared that they were the true demons, unleashing a devastating blast. The mages were torn apart by the raw power, left broken on the floor. Kella acknowledged the immense strength as Hell's power, but felt his own, body straining under the unfamiliar load, unable to handle so much just yet. He turned to Rin, asking if she could move. She affirmed she could. He instructed her to get moving, and they ran toward the exit. He silently thanked Hell. Because of that power transfer, he could finally escape the castle. They burst out into the bright sunlight of the world outside. Kella stopped, breathing the open air, realizing he was finally free. A slow, genuine laugh escaped him. He could go anywhere now, live the life he wanted. Suddenly, a brilliant beam of light shot down from the sky. Kayla stared, confused by the phenomenon. Rin recognized it instantly, shouting that it was a teleportation spell. Kayla looked alarmed, reaching out desperately for Rin to take his hand, but she was too far. The light intensified, engulfing Kayla completely and pulling him skyward, far. Below, the light deposited him high above a sprawling, unfamiliar island city, surrounded by water, descending rapidly towards it. Completely disoriented, Kella frantically wondered where on earth he was. Chapter 9. Welcome to Arsal. Disoriented by the sudden teleportation, Kella frantically questioned their location. Rin, equally surprised but recognizing the magic, addressed him tentatively. Kayla remarked that he hadn't known Rin could use teleportation magic, but she clarified it wasn't her doing. She explained it felt like an alarm spell their father had placed on them, activating upon his death. Rin then noticed, surprised that all her wounds had healed. Kella surmised they must have spent roughly 3 days within the teleportation space, allowing time for recovery. He understood now. Helkul Dun had intentionally designed the spell to heal them during emergencies. Rin marveled that it was a healing and teleportation spell combined into one powerful failsafe. Keela mused that placing such protective spells perhaps showed a sliver of parental concern from his father. Rin softly asked if this truly meant the Demon King had passed away, which Kayla confirmed as they walked. Internally, Kayla smirked. His father's death went just as he had planned, though the method was unexpected. Rin then turned to him, earnestly pleading for him to become the next Demon King. Kayla glanced back, questioning why he would do such a thing. Rin insisted that seeing his recent changes, his power, his decisiveness, even freeing her, convinced her he was the one truly fit for the throne. She vowed to serve him faithfully until he claimed his title. Kella paused, thinking she completely misunderstood his goals, but sighed and agreed, reasoning that he lacked manpower anyway, and her help, however misguided, was useful for now. Rin asked him to wait. They approached a grand, unfamiliar structure. Rin identified it with dread as Arsal, the magic country dedicated solely to nurturing talent for defeating demons. Banners flew, proclaiming the death of Demon King Helkuldun and celebrating the eternal light of Talyua. Kella stared, aghast at ending up in the heart of enemy territory. He worried about what would happen if they were discovered. Rin quickly suggested using transformation magic before they were seen. Kayla agreed, adopting a disguise alongside her. Even the original, weaker Kayla could manage transformation magic. Now clad in simple cloaks, Kayla asked Rin to tell him everything she knew about Arsal. She explained it was a small island nation on Talyua's eastern border, blessed by a giant sea cryptid named Watergore, affectionately nicknamed Willy by locals, probably. This blessing fostered natural magic development, producing many strong mages. As a country under Talia's control, Arsal had been a long-standing enemy of the demons. Kella absorbed the information, pondering why his father would send him to such a dangerous place. Rin, still processing, nervously asked why he'd walk in the capital after hearing all that, urging him to run. Kella coolly stated that running away required preparation first. He knew magic was crucial to achieving his dreams in this world, and in Arsal, everything ran on magic. It was even used in common buildings, some of which floated ethereally. If he could learn magic here, he could build even more elaborate things than in the game. Just then, Rin's stomach growled loudly. Kella suggested they eat first, spotting a food stall. Rin eagerly tried the famous magic dish of Arsal, declaring it delicious. She excitedly pointed to another stall, then another food item, equally delighted. Kella briefly considered ditching her there while she was distracted by snacks. Rin then suggested visiting a magic bar to relax. Inside the noisy tavern, a man announced drinks were free to celebrate the Demon King's subjugation. The crowd cheered wildly for Commander Sriles, hailed as the hope of Arsal and the greatest mage of Talcon. Kella and Rin found themselves swept up in the revelry, both getting tipsy despite being lightweights. Kella conceded, leaning against Rin slightly, that maybe taking a break wasn't so bad after all. Just then, Sriles noticed them. The flushed pair raised their mugs. Sriles smirked, observing the seemingly interesting couple that had stumbled into her celebration. The celebration proved too much for Kella, who found himself emptying his stomach. In an alley, Rin scolded him for drinking excessively when he couldn't handle alcohol, especially at a festival celebrating his own father's demise, reminding him that drinking was his idea in the first place. Their bickering was interrupted by shouts announcing a new S-rank quest. Kella wondered about the commotion, while Rin found it unbelievable, given the Demon King was supposedly dead. She recalled that hunting Helkuldun had previously been the sole S-rank quest. Curiosity piqued. Rin dragged Kella towards the rapidly forming crowd. A new wanted poster was being displayed, depicting Kella himself. Murmurs spread through the crowd about the Demon King's children surviving. Kella and Rin stared at the poster in shock. Rin confirmed the image was indeed Kayla. Outraged, Kayla yelled, questioning why he had a bounty now that his father was gone. Rin quickly clamped a hand over his mouth, laughing nervously and explaining to the onlookers that her companion was simply very drunk. The crowd dismissed Kayla as the weakest prince, assuming the quest would be easy, more like a B-rank job, with many hunters likely eager for the reward. Kayla scowled, realizing he needed to keep a low profile. He told Rin they needed to leave. Rin agreed, suddenly unsure how to address him publicly without revealing his identity. After moments' thought, Kayla told her to call him Chiwu. Rin repeated the strange name, confused, but Kayla insisted. He noted grimly that people realizing he was alive this quickly was bad news. They needed supplies before leaving Arsal. Rin readily agreeing, addressing him as young Master Chiwu. Just then, Sriles approached, asking if the rumors of another S-rank quest were true. Kella and Rin nervously confirmed they'd only glanced at the notice. Kella remembered the tavern cheers, identifying Sriles as the hope of Arsal, clearly an important figure. Sriles took a long drink, muttering about the Demon King's son still being alive and cursing those damn demons. Kella attempted to downplay the threat, remarking that Kella was supposed to be weak anyway, with Rin quickly agreeing it wasn't a big deal. Sriles eyed them sharply, making them both flinch. She leaned in, questioning how it won't be a big deal that the Demon King's son lived. She added that she'd noticed earlier how they smelled rather strange. Rin panicked internally, certain they were caught. Sriles' expression turned menacing. Her face broke into a wide grin as she declared they must be travelers needing a bath, inviting them to her place to wash up and drink more. Smelling like adventure, Or maybe just BO, she didn't specify. Kella and Rin exchanged bewildered looks. Srils cheerfully slung her arms around their shoulders, leading them off, much to their confused relief. Sril's home was impressive, some parts even floating magically. Soon, Kella was soaking in luxurious hot springs water, enjoying unfamiliar tea and snacks served on a floating tray. He wondered if even the food was made with magic. He relaxed, thinking how he'd always wanted to live in a game world. His dream had essentially come true. This ice guy life wasn't half bad, he mused contentedly. Elsewhere in the bath, Rin was internally frantic, telling herself to get it together before she was discovered. Srils, also bathing, cheerfully asked Rin if the tub wasn't nice. She inquired why Rin seemed so nervous, jokingly asking if she was a demon who'd been caught. Rin forced a loud laugh, denying it vehemently. Srils then produced a glowing orb, saying she'd use a scent to help Rin relax. Rin immediately recognized the holy element aura, the worst possible thing for a demon, realizing it drained mana and would break her disguise spell. She silently screamed for Kayla's help, while Kayla remained blissfully unaware, sipping his tea. Continuing her monologue in the steaming bath, Srils confided in Rin, expressing a belief that all her suffering would cease once the Demon King died. Rin, still feeling the effects of the holy scent, desperately wanted to leave, covering her mouth and telling Srils to stop talking so much. Srils, ignoring Rin's discomfort, mentioned how she was designated to become a mage from birth as she started with her flashback. Overwhelmed, Rin suddenly burst from the water, sputtering that Srils could reminisce later. She needed the restroom immediately and dashed out. Srils watched her go with a knowing smirk, guessing the holy scent hadn't agreed with her. Rin found Kella outside, looking far too relaxed after his bath. She frantically recounted the near disaster, explaining that the hot spring water was fine, but Srils used a holy scent, nearly undoing her disguise. She stressed how potent holy elements manifested by advanced mages could drain a demon's mana. Kella acknowledged the close call, then cheekily suggested taking another bath before leaving, earning an exasperated glare from Rin. Just then, Srils emerged, fully dressed, questioning their sudden desire to leave after agreeing to a second round. Rin stammered an excuse about needing to go. Srils, however, tempted them, asking if they weren't curious about drinks and dishes made with magic, dangling a glowing blue orb temptingly. Kella's ears perked up at the mention of food magic. He readily agreed to the second round, dragging a protesting Rin, who muttered his real name under her breath, along with the enthusiastic Srils. Later that night, mages gathered stealthily outside Srils' residence under the full moon. They confirmed the presence of demons, specifically noting the Demon King's child was inside, a rare opportunity they couldn't miss. Inside the seemingly normal house, Srils served Kella and Rin drinks, asking their opinion and casually mentioning they were made with holy water. Both demons forced down the drink. Feeling an internal burning sensation, Kella cursed inwardly, disappointed after getting excited about food magic. Srils then picked up her earlier conversation with Rin. Speaking of the life she'd lived, she explained her all-consuming goal, killing the Demon King, joining the Talkin' Squad, and training. With her life on the line, she lifted her shirt slightly, revealing a harsh scar across her abdomen received during a past test. Keela noted he hadn't seen that scar earlier. Srils gave a wry smile, admitting it wasn't nice to look at, before revealing the scarred socket, where her left eye should be, stating she didn't actually have an eye there either. Kella and Rin stared, shocked. She explained she hid both injuries with magic, as seeing them constantly brought back the phantom pain of that day. A flashback showed a brutal training ground, an instructor yelling at a fallen younger Srils to get up, reminding her that their squad's sole purpose was taking down the Demon King. He demanded she endure the pain, shouting at her to declare their goal. Young Srils, clutching her bleeding eye, screamed back their objective, killing the Demon King. Back in the present, Srils recounted sacrificing her life and gaining those scars. She abruptly leaned towards Kella, asking what he'd meant about Kella being weak. Her hand reached out, touching his abdomen, questioning if he bore similar scars. Kella tensed. Srils noted how smooth his skin was, suspiciously free of scars. Rin gasped his true name in alarm. Kella realized Srils' touch was disrupting his disguise magic. Srils leaned closer, whispering his assumed name, Chi Wu, then declared he was a demon. Kella internally cursed she had known. Suddenly, white rats swarmed across the floor as they transformed to armored mages burst violently into the room. Srils reacted, acknowledging the mage's arrival. Kella and Rin instantly suspected a trap. Sriels calmly greeted the intruders, confirming they were all there. The lead mage pointed to Sriel's revealed scarred eye, declaring heaven's intel correct. She'd been hiding her true self. He proclaimed loudly that Sriels was a demon who had infiltrated Arsal. Kella and Rin were utterly stunned by the accusation. Kella realized the mages weren't there for them, but for Sriels. She was a demon? Sriels let her demonic staff materialize, confirming she had no reason to hide anymore, and confessed with a grin that she had leaked the intel about herself. The mages, needing no further proof, commanded their troops to kill her. Sriel scoffed, reminding them she was an elite mage of Tolkien, not someone a mere dozen Arsal mages could handle, gathering powerful dark energy. Rin yelled for Chiwu to get back. Kellen knew this was bad. Sriels unleashed the dark energy in a massive explosion. When the dust settled, Sriels stood defiantly. Kella and Rin unexpectedly unharmed behind her. They stared, wondering if she had just protected them. Sriels turned, stating they were demons too, unable to hide it from her. She then revealed her true identity. Sriels Khaldun, daughter of the late demon king Hel Khaldun. Sriels declared her full name, Sriels Khaldun, revealing herself as a daughter of the late demon king Hel Khaldun. Kella and Rin stared, utterly flabbergasted by this unexpected family reunion. With little time before the mages outside regrouped, Sriels announced she would use memory transfer magic to quickly bring them up to speed, touching their foreheads as purple energy flowed. Their minds were flooded with Sriel's past. They saw a younger Helkilden standing before a small, dirt-covered girl, the sole success of brutal demonic experiments, a demon capable of hiding her horns and power. The girl recognized the absolute ruler instantly. Huckledun acknowledged her lineage, confirming his blood ran through her veins, making her his daughter. The young girl reeled from shock. She had only known life as a lab rat, enduring endless, agonizing experiments day after day, her only option being survival. All the other children created alongside her had perished. She had expected to die just like them. Yet, here stood the Demon King, claiming her as his daughter. Overwhelmed but resolute, she declared an honor. Helkulden bestowed upon her the name Sriels Khaldun and gave her a mission: infiltrate heaven as a spy. Young Sriels readily accepted, willing to do anything for the father she had just met. The memories shifted, showing Shrills collapsed outside. Arsal's grand walls. Mages found her, assuming she was a child victim of a demon attack. They carried her back for treatment, unknowingly welcoming the Demon King's spy into their midst. Shrills endured rigorous training, rising through the ranks of Arsal's mages until she became one of the strongest in the elite Tolkien squad. 15. Years passed before she saw her father again, across a desolate battlefield. She desperately wanted to run to him, but couldn't break her cover. Her goal was so close. Her true mission required patience. Secretly use magic to hinder the Tolkien squad and support her father until he defeated General Kilman. She envisioned returning to the castle with him afterward, finally living a real life as Sriels Khaldun. The memory flashed to the climax of the battle. Kilman acknowledged Helkaldun's strength, but the Demon King scoffed at needing human validation. Kilman, preparing to end things, unleashed his ultimate attack, the Spear of Heaven's Marauders. Huckledun countered with the Flames of Hell, Magna Lexar. Sriels cried out in horror as the overwhelming energies collided. In that instant, she heard her father's voice telepathically. He called her name, Sriels Khaldun, his daughter, giving her one final command: served the next Demon King as she had served him, protecting him until the very end. The explosion consumed Helkilden. Sriels watched in anguish as her father disintegrated. With backup forces arriving, Sriels had no choice but to return to Talua. The entire continent celebrated the Demon King's death, a sight Sriels observed with cold attachment. She retired from Tolkien, returning to Arsal, her second home, the place. Her mission began. She vowed to start anew, dedicating herself to avenging her father by destroying his enemies, starting with Arsal itself. The memory transfer ended. Rin stammered, finding it impossible to believe Srilts was the Demon King's daughter. Kella internally groaned, just when he thought he was free of his psycho siblings. Another one pops up, though thankfully not blood-related this time. Sriel stated she wouldn't force their cooperation, but issued a stern warning. Arsal, the magic country, was a core threat. As the last hope of the Demonkin, Kella's survival depended on Arsal's destruction. The longer it stood, the sooner he would die. Kella clenched his fist, realizing she was right. Mages were crucial forces, and leaving Arsal unchecked put him directly in danger. Outside, the lead mage rallied his forces, eager to claim credit for capturing Sriles before reinforcements arrived after hearing the earlier explosion. He ordered them to attack with full power. Kayla noted bitterly that these mages attacked without hesitation, even when they likely assumed Kayla and Rin were fellow humans. Rin noticed a change in Kayla. Small, glowing horns erupted from Kayla's head as he smirked, declaring this was simply self-defense. Sriles gasped, shocked. The energy radiating from Kayla was unmistakable. It was their father's power. That night, Kayla and Sriles unleashed an endless battle upon Arsal. Kayla reflected that to the horrified Rin, it must have looked like an outright massacre. But for Sriles, Arsal was a second home. She knew its layout intimately. With ruthless efficiency, she destroyed the main government facilities and the magic academy. Kayla, tapping into Helkaldin's mana, dealt swiftly with the power-drunk fools, still celebrating the festival, cutting them down without mercy. Their combined demonic power proved overwhelming. The nation of magic, Arsal, was swiftly taken down, its structures crumbling under relentless assault. Flames engulfed the city, painting the very skies red as Kayla and Rin surveyed the devastation. 1. Surviving mage stared in disbelief, unable to accept Arsal could fall so easily. He spat defiance, vowing never to forgive the demons. Shrill silenced him with a blast of energy, retorting that she was the one who couldn't forgive them. With Arsal crushed, she declared her intent to destroy the Talkin Squad and the Empire of Talyua next, ending them all. Kella and Rin were taken aback by the sheer scale of her vengeful ambition. Feeling they had helped enough, Kella decided it was time for them to part ways, but Sriles stopped him. She questioned if he thought she wouldn't recognize their father's mana, confirming his identity as Kella Khaldun, the second son. Seeing no point in denying it, Kella tiredly admitted she was right. Sriles gasped, confirming Kella's suspicion that she might have just been guessing. She explained that while initially suspicious, his mana confirmed it. She clarified she wasn't a traditional daughter, but a mutant created from their father's blood aura, acknowledging Kayla as the true bloodline. Since she was made after him, she playfully declared him her older brother, a title Kayla vehemently rejected internally. Assuming he sought vengeance too, she invited him to join her. Kayla scoffed internally at the idea of revenge having just run away from home. Thrills pressed, asking if he was truly running away, reminding him he was the only remaining child of the Demon King. Rin pleaded nervously for Kayla to agree, sensing the deadly threat Sriles posed if refused. Kayla resignedly agreed, stating he would get revenge. He felt he had little choice. Sriles grinned, ready to burn everything down. Kayla agreed tersely, pulling Rin close. He reasoned internally that he needed Arsal's magic knowledge anyway, and Sriles wouldn't know at all. He could stall for time, using revenge as an excuse, treating her as an ally for now. They left the ruins, observed by the wounded mage. That mage managed to send an urgent report to Talyua. An advisor informed the great king of Talyua about the message. The king, interrupted during his meal, demanded to know the urgent news. The advisor reported that Sriles was confirmed a demon. Arsal mages tried to eliminate her, but Kella Khaldun appeared and burned Arsal to the ground alongside her. The king slammed his fist down, enraged. The Demon King's son was an Arsal? The advisor, Hayden, suggested Kella likely had connections to Sriles. The king fumed. Sriles, being a demon was bad enough, but Kella destroying Arsal? If this got out, they'd be a laughingstock. He ordered Hayden to kill both Sriles and Kella immediately, threatening his position if he failed. Hayden swore on his name to kill them and departed. He paused before the preserved head of Helkaldin, muttering about the Demon King's troublesome bloodline and vowing to burn away all who carried it. Elsewhere in the palace, the king demanded news of the Cillian squad. Hayden assured him General Cillian should have received the message and was ordered to return immediately. Hayden considered Killian the best knight, surpassing even the deceased Killman, and absolutely necessary to hunt down Kella and Sriles. Miles away, on a desolate mountain, a white-haired man named Killian read a scroll. A messenger confirmed. His brother Killman died bravely killing the Demon King. Killian remained impassive, merely stating Killman was killed by a demon. The messenger relayed Talia's need for him to hunt Kella Khaldun. Killian declared he didn't care what Taliwell wanted. Since demons killed his brother, he would kill every demon on the continent, starting with Kelly Khaldun. Killian, consumed by vengeance for his brother's death, vowed to slaughter every demon on the continent, starting specifically with Kella Khaldun. Later, around a crackling magical campfire, Kella, Rin, and Sriel shared a massive roast. Kelly wondered aloud who could possibly eat so much meat. Ren asked Sriles if she had a secret for staying slim despite her appetite. Sriles nonchalantly replied that if it goes in and out quickly, you won't get fat. A surprisingly simple, if slightly TMI, dietary tip. Ren seemed awestruck by this miracle theory. Kellum used internally that at least Sriles wasn't actively trying to kill him like Seldara or Tarm, though he had worried she might resent him for being the main bloodline. He decided to ask Sriles directly if she held anything against him for being their father's biological child. Sriles admitted bluntly that she did, to the point where she wanted to kill him, confirming Kella's expectation. However, she continued, because he shared the same blood as the father she revered, she couldn't truly hate him. Furthermore, possessing their father's blood meant she felt obligated to protect him however she could. Kella was surprised. Unlike his other siblings, this one intended to protect him. Sriles grasped his hand firmly, promising to put her life on the line to keep him alive from now on. Kella, flustered, managed a simple thanks. Rin immediately shrieked, asking why he was blushing. She then tried to force-feed Kayla her portion, insisting he needed to eat after using so much mana. Kayla tried to calm her down, assuring her he understood her frantic vow to protect his health until death. Sriles noted that news of Arcel's fall would soon spread, drawing demon hunters, making their current location unsafe. Kayla, however, saw it differently, declaring it a great place to stay. He explained with a grin that with a little effort, they could turn it into an impenetrable secret fortress. Following Kella's plan, they altered the terrain, creating a hidden base. While resting and recovering their mana, Kella reflected that even the Demon King needed rest after battles. Sriles, having expended even more energy, needed a longer recovery period. They recuperated safely within their newly constructed fortress. Meanwhile, back in Talua, a herald announced the arrival of Tawkin's second squad, the Tawkin of White, led by Cillian. The king remarked that just looking at them gave him goosebumps. He welcomed their return, calling them his strongest squad. A squad member named Deed complimented Cillian on his rapid increase in strength, suggesting General Kilman would have been pleased. Another member, Audria, loudly scolded Deed for his improper tone, prompting Deed to note her usual loudness. A scarred warrior, Kalka, asked Killian if they must heed the king's summons, adding that killing Kella Kaldan now wouldn't satisfy his anger. Killian apologized to Kalka, stating he first needed to show something to Curdley, a cloaked woman. Inside the palace, Killian led his squad to the preserved head of Helkaldan. Killian identified the head as his brother's killer. Deed muttered disgust, hushed by the others. Killian asked Curdley if the tracking spell would work with just the head. Curdley affirmed it was possible. The bloodstains would allow her to search for those of the same bloodline, channeling magic towards the head. Killian addressed the head directly, telling Helkildan to keep his eyes open and watch what they were about to do. The lifeless eyes seemed to glint. Back at the fortress, Sriles, now recovered, declared it was time to hunt the bastards, anticipating the imminent arrival of Tawkin's second squad. Rin questioned the name. Sriles explained that Talua never truly expected the first squad, Kilman's, to succeed against the Demon King. They were essentially an experiment. The squad Talua poured its real strength into was the second squad, the Tawkin of White, led by Kilman's younger brother, Killian, and composed entirely of combat geniuses. Kella processed this, asking if Kilman, his father's killer, was weaker than this new squad. Sriles admitted reluctantly that they were indeed far stronger than Kilman, though she couldn't estimate by how much. Kella's expression hardened as it prepared to face this significantly more dangerous threat. Sriles grimly confirmed the Tawkin of White were far superior to Kilman, their true skill unpredictable. Kella's expression remained steely, considering the implications. Rin, ever practical and easily panicked, worriedly asked how they could possibly invade Talua against such foes. Sriles explained the elite squad had been in isolation training, requiring time to reassemble, making an immediate strike on Talua necessary. Kayla countered, noting Talua's vast size compared to Arsal. Mere luck wouldn't secure victory this time. He offered a different approach, reminding Sriles that the squad hunting him was likely already assembled due to the urgency of his bounty. Attacking Talua now, just the three of them, was nonsensical. They needed to develop an army and build their own base first. The mention of an army and base caught Sriles and Rin by surprise. Kayla elaborated, envisioning an army capable of matching the Tawkin of White and a base impenetrable even to Talia's forces. He declared with a flash of manic energy their goal, constructing the strongest dungeon imaginable. Both Sriles and Rin were stunned by the concept of building a dungeon. Kella stressed they couldn't gamble on uncertain battles, lest they end up like his father. He reiterated the plan to create the ultimate dungeon and then wage war against Talua. Sriels readily agreed, impressed by the strategy she expected from her father's son. Kella mentally patted himself on the back for pulling that idea out of thin air. Eager to begin, Sriels mentioned knowing some demons they could recruit and declared they should go find them. She and Rin cheered enthusiastically for the coming war, much to Kella's mild bemusement. He acknowledged internally that this plan was primarily a stalling tactic. His true ambition remained creating his own perfect, uninterrupted world, like a game map made real. Stealing his resolve, Kella asked Sriels about the trustworthy demons she knew. He specified needing someone with extensive knowledge of geography and terrain for their first recruit. Sriels pondered for a moment, then brightly announced she knew just the demon and urged them onward. As they journeyed through the mountains, Kella began studying Arsal's magic from a book Sriels provided, Rin peering curiously over his shoulder. The magic seemed complex, something he shouldn't have grasped so quickly, but his Demon King blood accelerated his learning significantly. He felt a sense of accomplishment, learning and using magic with his own hands, feeling closer to his ultimate goal. 4 days later, they arrived in a barren, desolate landscape. Kella questioned why any demon would live there. Sriels explained grimly that the land hadn't always been this way, not until Talkin forces staged an ambush here. Kella and Rin exchanged confused glances. Sriels suddenly warned them both not to move. Orc-like demons erupted from the earth, shouting defiance at the perceived Talkin invaders, demanding to know if they had returned. One lunged fiercely at Sriels, vowing death to Talkin. Sriels coolly noted the demons clearly hadn't heard she'd switched teams. Talk about being out of the loop. Rin yelled frantically, asking why Sriels wasn't defending herself. Kella silenced her with a sharp command. He advised letting the situation play out. The lead demon angrily questioned Sriels' lack of resistance, asking if she deemed them unworthy opponents. Sriels bowed slightly in apology, stating she would accept their rage until they felt better. The lead demon recognized the symbolic pose, known only among their kind. Sriels formally apologized again, this time as a fellow demon. The earth demons were shocked, recalling she had arrived with Talkin soldiers previously. Kella stepped forward, confirming Sriels' words were true, declared himself the last remaining. Child of the Demon King Hel Kaldon, vouching for Sriels' allegiance. The powerful demonic energy radiating from Kela washed over the earth demons, leaving no doubt about his identity. Instantly recognizing young Master Kela, they fell to their knees, offering their greetings to His Highness. Rin being beside Kela, Sriels smirked, pointing out how they acknowledged him as the rightful heir. Kella looked thoughtfully towards the nearby cliffside settlement. He allowed himself a small smile. Perhaps building his army wouldn't be so difficult after all. The earth demons erupted in cheers, recognizing the great Demon King's son, Kella Kaldun, and offering their formal greetings. Their elder approached, promising to prepare anything Kella needed and eagerly awaited his orders. Kela observed their settlement, noting the unique architecture, different from both the Demon King's castle and Arsal. He was impressed they had built such a sturdy city primarily from natural materials without magic, praising its excellent strategic placement. He never imagined such a large, hidden underground city existed, as the earth demons rarely showed themselves. Kela conceded Sriels was right. They definitely needed the earth demons' talent. Sriels smugly acknowledged his agreement. Setting aside the general population, Sriels mentioned another specific, excellent warrior they should recruit. Kella inquired about this warrior. Sriels explained how Talkin, under General Kilman, had discovered this hidden city while journeying to the Demon King's castle years ago. Kilman, disgusted at finding hidden demons, had ordered the extermination of the filthy earth demons. His soldiers set the concealing forest ablaze, burning the city and nearly wiping out the earth demons. But then, a brave warrior named Douglas stood against them, condemning the massacre of non-combatants and vowing to protect the children from those lacking a warrior's pride. Kilman, observing this unexpected defense, asked the warrior his name. The demon proudly declared himself Douglas, son of the earth demons. Kilman noted the name, lamenting that such a warrior wasn't born human. Impressed, or perhaps just pragmatic, Kilman ordered his troops to cease combat and continue their journey. Douglas was left stunned. Sriels, who had witnessed this disguise. Within Kilman's ranks, teed old Douglas his bravery, saved his tribe. Back in the present, Sriels finished her story, explaining Douglas stayed and protected the children until the very end. Kella and Ren were impressed. Even his name sounded trustworthy. Kella mused that an earth demon capable of combat was exactly what he hoped for. Over dinner, Kella expressed his desire to meet this Douglas. The Earth Demon Elder hesitated, warning that Douglas was quite stubborn and suggesting Kella might be better off looking elsewhere. Kella firmly refused, insisting he would bring Douglas along and demanded to know his location. They found Douglas working tirelessly in a forge. Kella questioned his refusal to obey. Douglas hammered away, stating that while Kella might be the Demon King's son, he wasn't obligated to follow him. Kella asked what would happen if he used force. Douglas retorted fiercely that he would die fighting. Kella inquired why he was so determined to remain. Douglas explained he was born and raised there, duty-bound to protect his homeland, which he could not leave. Kella acknowledged the demon was indeed as stubborn as reported. Douglas offered a curt apology. Kella felt a pang of disappointment, mentally comparing this recruitment attempt to frustrating gacha game pulls for rare orc allies, just as luck. If Douglas would rather die, it couldn't be helped. Kella paused, then turned away from the forge, admiring the city's efficient architecture again. He still wished someone with the Earth Demon's knowledge would serve him. Just then, Shrills and Rin reappeared, already drunk and raving about how amazing the Earth Demon liquor was, urging Kella to try some. Kella grumbled internally about the damn drunkards hindering his investigation. Rin shoved a large wooden mug at him. Taking a sip, Kella was bewildered, tasting yams in the beer, and questioned Rin, who had no idea what yams were. Shrills laughed, dismissing Kella's yam talk as drunken. Nonsense. The elder chuckled, observing they were all drunk already, and instructed his attendants to escort the guests to their best resting chambers. Later, Kella slept soundly in the provided room. The door creaked open quietly. Heavy boots stepped inside. An axe glinted as it was raised high above the sleeping Kella. Douglas stood over him, axe poised, calling Kella a wuss before bringing the weapon down violently. The hidden truth and boiling rage. Douglas recoiled in shock, wondering how Kella could possibly know. Kella, eyes snapping open as the axe hovered inches from his neck, simply stated fine, confirming his suspicions were correct. He wasn't asleep. Douglas realized this too late as Kella vaulted off the bed. The other Earth Demons, alerted by the commotion, stormed in, calling Kella a coward and urging Douglas to kill him. Kella landed crouched on the floor, his initial skepticism about the Earth Demons now fully justified. His mind raced back through the clues. He recalled seeing Douglas at the forge earlier, suspiciously crafting items that weren't weapons, restraints too small for any Earth Demon. He remembered the feeling of being watched while exploring the village, prompting him to pay closer attention. That led him to discover a wall hidden by a subtle magic barrier, one so faint he likely wouldn't have detected it without the inherited sensitivity of the Demon King's mana. Then, there was the final, crucial detail. Shrills had specifically mentioned Douglas protecting young dark elves during Kilman's attack, yet Kayla hadn't seen a single dark elf, young or old, anywhere in the village. Suddenly, everything clicked into place like a terrible puzzle. Channeling his demonic power, Kayla surged forward, striking Douglas with blinding speed and sending the larger demon staggering back. Kayla confronted him, stating Douglas hadn't told Kilman he couldn't let the elves die, but rather that he couldn't hand them over. The distinction was critical. It wasn't about protection, Kayla accused, but possession. Douglas simply didn't want his valuable assets taken away. Douglas stared, aghast. How could Kayla have deduced the truth? Kayla coolly suggested they go. Release that magic barrier now. Hearing the disturbance, a crowd of earth demons gathered outside, calling out to their great warrior Douglas as Kayla held him captive. Kayla realized with grim certainty that the entire village must have been complicit in this secret. The elder cursed Douglas loudly for failing his task. Douglas could only grit his teeth and offer a mumbled apology. Kayla pressed a blade of pure energy against Douglas's throat, warning the assembled demons that any movement would mean their warrior's death. The elder, cursed again, bewildered how the supposedly cowardly Kayla had unraveled their deception. Near a seemingly ordinary building, Kayla ordered Douglas to open the hidden door. With visible reluctance, Douglas pressed a gem against a hidden mechanism on the wall, deactivating the barrier. The wall slid silently open, revealing a dark, cramped space filled with emaciated, terrified dark elves huddled together in restraints. Kayla stared, appalled. Their condition was far worse than anything he could have imagined. Just then, Shrills and Rin arrived, rushing towards Kayla, relieved he was all right, and cursing the ambushers, only to stop dead in their tracks, equally stunned by the horrifying sight within the hidden room. Turning to Shrills, Kayla requested she perform memory transfer magic on one of the dark elves. Shrills agreed, noting the memories would be less clear than her own, but confirming it was possible. Kella nodded grimly, telling her to proceed. Shrills focused her magic, drawing out the memories of a young, terrified, dark elf female and channeling them into Kella. The images flooded Kella's mind, a living hell. He saw forced pregnancies, lives born only into captivity, shadowy figures of human nobles, selected children, tearing them away from their mothers to be sold by the earth demons for piles of coin. Occasionally, captured outsiders would whisper tales of the world beyond, of unending skies, blue oceans, fantastic foods, and a simple freedom to travel, concepts utterly alien to the captive elves. Their only wish, often uttered before death claimed them, was for even one child to escape and experience the wonders of the outside world. This pathetic, exploited existence filled Kella with cold disgust. Raw fury erupted within him as he turned. Back to Douglas, teeth bared, roaring curses at the treacherous earth demons. Douglas flinched back in surprise. With a final, enraged yell, Kella slammed his fist violently into Douglas's face, cleansing the corrupt. Douglas crashed to the ground from the force of Kella's blow. Shrills and Rin reacted with fury, realizing the earth demons hadn't been saving the dark elves, but smuggling them. Spitting blood, Douglas confirmed their horrific trade. Dark elves were rare commodities coveted by human nobles. He tried to justify it, mentioning the elves' affinity for nature brought peace. Cynically adding this made them perfect livestock. Shrills and Rin couldn't believe the depravity enslaving fellow demons. Douglas desperately argued that with the Demon King gone, the elves were essential for their survival against humans. Kella felt a cold rage build, his fist crackling with energy. His own miserable past under his father's thumb flashed through his mind. Yet the suffering of these captive children was incomparably worse. He couldn't stand idly by while this continued. Turning to face his companions before the imprisoned elves, Kella declared they would finish the job Kilman started, implying the complete eradication of these corrupt earth demons. Shrills and Rin readily agreed, unable to forgive such a betrayal of their own kind. Kella vowed to cleanse this place. Douglas scrambled to his feet, rallying the remaining earth demons, reminding them there were only 3 intruders. With furious cries they charged. Rin shouted a warning as the attack began. Shrills angrily questioned how they dared rebel against the Demon King's kin. One demon spat defiance, calling Kayla a wuss they had no reason to obey. Rin fiercely countered that Lord Kayla would become the next Demon King. Another demon lunged directly at Kayla. Kayla met the attack, reflecting that this wasn't a game anymore. This was real life, and he finally had the power to change things. He dodged, refusing to remain passive as he once had. From their prison, the dark elves watched, one crying out for the earth demons to be killed. A younger elf named Wood wondered if these newcomers were actually fighting for them, resolving that they had to help. Another elf grabbed Wood, warning him back, telling him it was too dangerous. Others pleaded with him to stay put, terrified of the torture they would face if Kella's group lost. Wood froze, the word torture echoing with traumatic memories. Kella saw the elf's terror. Facing an earth demon, he promised they would receive back all the pain they had inflicted, hearing the echoes of the elves' suffering. The lead earth demon realized a direct fight was failing and pulled out a small redstone, an earth thorer. He bit into it, urging the others to consume theirs, screaming that losing meant losing everything. The remaining earth demons frantically ate their own ores. Rin gasped, recognizing the legendary items she thought were mere myth. Kella demanded to know what they were. Shrills explained the ores massively boosted physical abilities, sometimes dozens of times over, at the cost of the user's lifespan. Douglas began to mutate, growling as his muscles bulged unnaturally. He transformed into a monstrous, hulking brute, roaring his intent to kill Kayla. Kayla felt the staggering increase in demonic energy and raw power, shocked. He gritted his teeth. He still couldn't access all the abilities his father had passed down. The transformed Douglas charged, bellowing for Kayla to prepare himself. Kayla braced, knowing this was incredibly dangerous. Douglas's fist flew forward, but before it could land, the ground erupted, encasing the monstrous demon in solid rock, immobilizing him completely. Kella stood before the trapped demon, a cold resolve in his eyes. Never again would he tolerate such exploitation. This corruption ended now. Unlock potential. Picking up immediately after trapping Douglas, Kella turned to the young dark elf, Wood, a predatory grin spreading across his face as he declared his approval. Wood looked startled by the sudden attention. From within his stone prison, Douglas, raged, accusing Wood of betrayal despite claiming to have raised the abandoned elf. Suddenly, the stone shattered as Douglas, fueled by the earth or in sheer fury, broke free, a gaping wound on his chest forgotten as he vowed to kill Wood immediately. Keela reacted with surprise. Not only had Douglas escaped, but his body had grown even larger. The monstrous earth demon ignored Kayla, throwing a powerful punch that connected squarely, sending Kayla skidding back across the cavern floor. Kayla coughed, astonished at the immense power granted by the earth magic stone. Ignoring Kayla entirely, Douglas lunged towards the terrified Wood, grabbing the young elf by the throat and promising to rip his head off. Wood choked, struggling against the massive grip. Kayla watched, bewildered that Douglas seemed more focused on killing the helpless elf than fighting him, the actual threat. Wood gasped in pain under the pressure. Realizing Douglas was too far for a direct assault and that he desperately needed a long-range attack, Kayla focused inward, pleading for any power to manifest. His surroundings abruptly dissolved. Kayla found himself floating in an ethereal void, confronted by a mocking, shadowy figure wreathed in dark flames. The entity identified the place as Kayla's own consciousness and demanded Kayla's attention, urging him to focus on saving Wood rather than asking questions, warning that while time flowed differently here, urgency was still required. Snapped back. To the present danger, Kayla remembered Wood's Paralan demanded if the entity knew a way to save him. The figure explained that Kayla wasn't yet ready to wield Helkelden's full strength, but more power would become available as his mind and body grew attuned. Impatiently, Kayla demanded to know what power he could use right now. The entity conceded, revealing one ability was accessible. Before Kayla could react further, the figure bid him farewell, using both his demon name, Kayla Kelden, and startlingly, his human name, Kong Chiwu, promising they would meet again. Kayla was stunned. How did it know his original name? He snapped back to reality, finding a bow constructed of pure blue energy materializing in his grasp. He recognized it instantly. Hell's fire arrow. Taking aim, he shouted a warning for Wood to protect himself. Douglas, still throttling Wood, paused, momentarily distracted by the surge of power. Wood cried out as the grip tightened again. Douglas cursed the interruption, but Keller declared it was the end for the slaver's dirty deeds. He released the arrow. Douglas stared in disbelief as the bolt of pure energy struck him dead center, erupting an blinding explosion of blue light. Douglas screamed, engulfed by the power. Keller watched, confirming the direct hit, as the screams continued from within the blast before fading. Keller stood, bow still humming, contemplating the strange entity he'd met within his consciousness. Meanwhile, Rin found herself overwhelmed by the remaining earth demons, and Shrills cursed her inability to use splash magic effectively due to the low ceiling. Kella assured them not to worry, drawing the energy, bow once more. He declared he would finish this quickly, loosing a volley of energy arrows that rained down on their attackers. Shrills watched, impressed, recognizing the fire arrow technique and noting Kella's mana felt even stronger. Kella smirked, glad he now possessed long-range attacks. Things are looking up. Very nice indeed. Chapter 20. New Allies and Unexpected Encounters. Under the moonlit sky, the dust settled over the ruined Earth Demon village. Kella, Rin, and Shrill surveyed the area, the lingering blue energy fading as Kella confirmed the threat was finally neutralized. Shrill examined a recovered Earth, ore, remarking that their power far exceeded her expectations. Rin expressed shock, having been unaware the ore's consumed lifespan. Keela pocketed one, stating they definitely needed further investigation. Turning to the gathered dark elves, Kayla announced their freedom. He advised them not to get caught by such villains again, and to live their lives freely. The elves reacted with disbelief, murmuring the word free as if it were foreign. Kayla affirmed their liberty, telling them they could leave this place. Relief washed over them as they realized they could take their children away from this hell. Overcome with emotion, they bowed deeply, thanking Sir Kella profusely. Shrills lamented that their plan to recruit earth demons as subordinates was now impossible, still vexed at being deceived. Ren agreed it was a shame, but unavoidable. Kella then addressed Wood, confirming the elf wasn't born here, but captured. Wood quietly affirmed this. Kella deduced Wood likely had no family to return to either. Wood sadly agreed again. Kayla then made an offer, come with them, explaining they needed someone capable of navigating the terrain, even if Wood wasn't an earth demon. Wood hesitated, pointing out his lack of terrain skills and his race. Feeling he would be useless, Kayla reassured him, reminding Wood that, as an elf, He received nature's love. Furthermore, Wood had shown bravery facing danger, which was more than enough. Kella extended his hand, telling Wood to get up and join them. Wood looked up, stunned, stammering Kella's name. He reflected on his past. He couldn't even remember his parents' faces, only being abandoned, captured by Douglas, and living a life of constant suffering. He had resigned himself to this hell until death. He hesitantly asked if he could truly leave and follow Kella. Kella corrected him. Wood wouldn't be following. He would be going with them. Tears welled in Wood's eyes at the distinction. Kella helped him up, and Wood managed another quiet thank you as they prepared to depart. They left the mountains behind. The earth demons were dealt with, and the dark elves were saved. Kella admitted slight concern for the elves who had never known the outside but reasoned that as demons loved by nature, anywhere would be better than their former prison. Wood seemed to adapt quickly, a quiet determination replacing his fear. As they journeyed under the stars, Rin playfully asserted her seniority to Wood, demanding he listen to her as the newbie. Wood meekly agreed. Sriles then suggested they find a river. Wood immediately pointed, sensing water in a specific direction. Rin grudgingly admitted he was pretty good, and Wood offered thanks. Kella asked Sriles why they needed a river. She explained they couldn't keep walking like peasants and needed mounts, which could often be found near water sources. Ren immediately got excited, asking if they could catch a dragon. Shrill shot down her unrealistic dream, stating they'd be lucky to find a unicorn, let alone a dragon. Kella sighed, deciding to trust Wood's senses and head towards the water. They soon arrived at a lush forest clearing where a sparkling river flowed. Near the bank stood two majestic unicorns. Just as Sriles predicted, the creatures sensed their approach and galloped away. Suddenly, a massive clawed footprint slammed into the ground nearby. A colossal winged silhouette rose against the moon. Rin, forgetting Sriles' words entirely, pointed excitedly, shouting that she wanted a dragon after all. Sriles exasperatedly reminded her there were no dragons, despite the very large, very scaly, very winged creature practically doing the Macarena in front of them. Far away, beneath the same moonlit sky, the desolate landscape near the former Earth Demon village lay still. Alone injured Earth Demons struggled amidst the rubble as a figure cloaked in white approached. The demon weakly pleaded for help, reaching out a hand. The cloaked figure, the mage Curdly, observed coolly that he was the only survivor. Meanwhile, at a camp littered with the bodies of other slain demons, the Talcon of White gathered around. A fire. Deed asked Curdly why the family tracking spell wasn't working properly. Curdly admitted she didn't know, explaining that multiple individuals carrying Helkolden's trace were detected scattered in different directions. Kalka expressed disbelief that so many of Hell's children could still be alive, and pressed Curdly on whether there was any way to pinpoint Kello among them. Curdly confirmed it wasn't possible. Audria complained about wasting time hunting multiple targets, while Deed asked for their next course of action. Killian, their leader, decided they couldn't afford to hesitate. They would hunt down the other demons spread across the continent first. He then specifically tasked Curdly with prioritizing the search for Kella. Curdly noted she could teleport short distances alone, suggesting this method might be faster for tracking Kella individually. Deed enthusiastically agreed, catching himself, before saying slaughter and correcting it to cleaning up, telling Curdly to handle her task. Curdly simply acknowledged the order and focused her energy, her tracking eye glowing. In a flash of light, she vanished, prompting Dee to comment on her abrupt departure. Killian smirked slightly, suggesting they proceed with hunting the nearby demons. Curdly reappeared back at the ruined Earth Demon village, sensing the faint energy trace she sought. She approached the lone survivor and asked if Kellicalden had passed through. The Earth Demon confirmed bitterly that the wimp Kayla had wiped out his entire tribe. Curdly inquired about Kella's current location. The demon frantically claimed ignorance, begging for his life first. But before he could finish, a blast of energy from Curdly silenced him permanently. She noted coldly that he was useless without information, and decided she had no choice but to follow the faint energy trace herself, murmuring Kellicalden's name as she departed once more. Miles away, Keela's group finally reached the river Wood had sensed, cheering their arrival. Kayla thanked Wood, impressed by his elven ability to track by scent over such a distance. Rin immediately tried to assert her seniority, telling Wood not to get arrogant, to which he meekly apologized. Kayla mentioned they hadn't eaten properly in days, prompting Rin to eagerly volunteer to fish, boasting about her supposed skill. Before she could act, Fish suddenly leaped from the river and withstood holding a large catch, surprising everyone. He explained he controlled the water's flow using nature's power, earning an impressed comment from Srills. Rin looked utterly crestfallen. As Rin reluctantly offered to start a fire, Srills instantly conjured a purple magical flame. This left Rin speechless, sulking behind a tree. Soon smoke rose as the fish cooked. They gathered around the fire, Srills complimenting Wood on the delicious meal. Kella noticed Ren wasn't eating and asked if she was okay. She mumbled she was fine. Srills promptly offered to eat Ren's portion, receiving a dejected nod of permission. Kella mused that fish alone wasn't enough and wondered about finding fruit. Ren immediately jumped at the chance, volunteering to search. Wood started to offer, but Kella quickly assigned the task to Ren, giving her a knowing look. Ren, eager to prove herself, promised the most delicious fruits and dashed off enthusiastically. Srills chuckled, calling Ren a simpleton. She then... Riley asked Kayla if he sent Ren off intentionally because she was feeling down. Kayla awkwardly denied it, insisting he just wanted fruit. Changing the subject, Kayla asked Wood if unicorns might be nearby. Wood confirmed he'd smelled them earlier and detected a similar scent close by. Kella half-joked he hoped it was a dragon like Rin wanted, earning an exasperated sigh from Shrills, who repeated there were no dragons there. Just then, Rin's voice echoed through the trees, announcing she'd found fruit. She ran towards a large tree, scrambling up onto something large and brown, determined to find the best fruit and not be outdone by Wood. She spotted a perfect ripe apple and reached for it. Suddenly, the ground beneath her trembled violently, making her cry out, wondering if it was an earthquake. A moment of dawning realization hit her. A low growl rumbled as a massive yellow eye opened below her. Perched precariously on the head of the enormous, scaly creature she had mistaken for a log, Rin let out a terrified shriek. It was a dragon. Back at the campfire, Shrills inquired about Wood's innate ability to sense the Earth's energy. Wood confirmed he could feel nature's presence up to a point, though explaining it precisely was difficult. Kella internally likened this power to checking the minimap in a game. Shrills noted such an ability would be invaluable for locating dungeons. Wood modestly added that his range was limited, questioning his own usefulness. Kella asked if training could extend the distance and would recall hearing of one method, prompting Keela's curiosity. Would explain that consuming the clairvoyant stone from a dragon over 1,000 years old could amplify his sensing range hundreds of times. Kayla was astonished by the potential power boost, calling it amazing. Shrills, however, quickly poured cold water on the idea, stating that finding such an ancient dragon was incredibly difficult, and killing one was virtually impossible. Kella asked if dragons were truly that formidable. Shrills affirmed they were apex predators who inherently disliked demons. She elaborated that only a select few humans possessing exceptional mental strength could ever hope to tame them. Kella found the irony amusing that supposedly weak humans were the only ones capable of taming mighty dragons. Shrills simply advised against trying to understand the complexities of dragon nature. Still, Kayla mused on the clairvoyant stone, wishing they could find a way to acquire one. Shrills reiterated the improbability, telling him to abandon the thought. Kayla sighed, conceding her point, but still wishing they could obtain the stone for Wood's sake. Their conversation was abruptly shattered by Rin's terrified scream, followed by the sight of her being snatched up by the massive dragon that had appeared earlier, yelling for Kayla to save her. The group stared in stunned silence. Shrills couldn't believe a dragon actually appeared. Kayla uttered its name in disbelief, and Wood merely commented on its sheer size. Kayla snapped at Wood to stop gawking and run, while Shrills simultaneously rounded on Kayla, reminding him he'd claimed they wouldn't encounter a dragon and questioning its unbelievable size. Kella yelled back that he didn't know, having never seen one so large, as the beast let out another deafening roar. Rin's continuous shrieking drew the dragon's attention, forcing them to flee as it gave chase. The roar carried through the forest, catching the attention of Curdley, who was tracking nearby. Recognizing the sound, she vanished in a shimmer of light. Kella Shrills and Wood dove behind some large rocks just as the dragon landed heavily nearby. After a moment, it launched itself back into the air and flew away. Shrills cautiously peeked out, sighing in relief that it was gone. She immediately turned on Rin, demanding to know what disaster she'd dragged back along with the fruit. Rin tearfully apologized, admitting she hadn't thought a dragon would be so close. Wood, still awed, commented again on its immense size, speculating it must have lived for over a millennium. The implication struck Kayla immediately. A dragon that ancient would possess a clairvoyant stone. Just as Kayla began to see this unexpected encounter as a potential opportunity, the group huddled behind the rocks, realized they weren't alone. Keela hesitantly asked who was there. Shrills leaped to her feet, recognizing the unwelcome addition to their hiding spot, Curdly of the Talcon of White. Shock rippled through Kella and Rin. A member of Killian's elite squad was here, meaning they had already been found. The group, instinctively prepared for battle, Kella summoning his energy, Bao, aware of Curdly's infamous reputation as a merciless, cold-blooded mage. Kella felt a surge of frustration. He'd hoped for peace after escaping the castle, but danger seemed relentless, and now he faced a notoriously powerful mage. Curdly, however, simply advised them to calm down, stating there was no need for conflict in this location. Curdly addressed Sriles directly, labeling her Talcon's traitor and reiterating that fighting here was pointless. Sriles clenched her jaw, suppressing her anger. To emphasize her point, Curdly manifested sharp shards of ice, calmly stating she could eliminate them all with a single spell. Kella frantically asked Shrills if this was true. Shrills grimly admitted Curdly wasn't bluffing. She was certain. Curdly was stronger than their entire group combined. Rin panicked, asking what they should do. Curdly maintained her calm demeanor, repeating there was no need for violence here. If they followed her without causing trouble, she offered, they wouldn't have to die for now. Kella, still wary but seeing no alternative, asked where she intended to take them, ice magic forming around her hand. She questioned if following wouldn't at least allow him to survive a little longer. Kella gritted his teeth. He hadn't survived this long, dreaming of living freely like in a game, just to accept such a pathetic end. He reasoned that facing her meant certain death, so he might as well fight back. Rejecting surrender, Kella fired Hell's Fire arrow straight at the mage. Curdly didn't even flinch, effortlessly erecting a shimmering, hexagonal energy shield that absorbed the blast completely. Shrill shouted for everyone to attack, launching her own potent purple energy blast against the barrier. Wood reached out, attempting to manipulate the earth beneath Curdly, but the attack splashed harmlessly against the shield. Curdly remained utterly unfazed by their combined assault. Rin, feeling like dead weight, couldn't stand by, declaring she would protect Sir Kella. She charged forward, hammering the shield with fists empowered by dark energy. Srills yelled a warning, telling Rin not to use close-range attacks against the mage. Curdly calmly acknowledged Rin's choice. Rin cried out as ice erupted from the shield's point of impact, blasting her backward. She crashed heavily into the undergrowth, injured. Curdly coolly stated that bringing Kayla's dead body back would suffice, beginning to gather immense power for a large-scale spell. Raising her hands, she unleashed a swirling vortex of ice shards. A blizzard. Shrills reacted, instantly shouting for everyone to get behind her. She threw up a large, purple sphere of protective magic just as the blizzard descended. Kayla rushed to Rin's side, asking if she was all right. Rin tearfully apologized, lamenting that she was never any help. Sriles strained, warning that her shield wouldn't last long against the onslaught. Kella desperately asked Sriles if she had any spell powerful enough to counter the blizzard. Sriles admitted that even if she did, the difference in their magic levels was simply too great. Curdly relentlessly poured more ice into the attack. Srills cried out as cracks spiderwebbed across her shield. Kella felt a wave of despair. If the shield failed, they would all be killed. There had to be a way. He frantically racked his brain. An idea sparked, the shadowy entity from his consciousness. He screamed, focusing inward, trying to channel his power and force contact. Srills yelled at him, warning that using his strength inside would weaken the shield faster. Kella ignored her, roaring for the entity to come out. Just as the shield began to buckle, the massive dragon reappeared overhead, circling once. It swooped down, its great eye fixing on Curdly. The mage paused her assault, sensing Helkaldan's energy flaring from Kella as he exerted himself. Now she understood why her tracking had failed earlier. His power wasn't constant. Still, she dismissed it, declaring this was the end. Kayla raged. Inwardly, unable to access his consciousness, he wondered if that power only activated near death. Shrill screamed as the shield finally shattered, the blizzard engulfing them. Kayla cried out, bracing for the inevitable. Suddenly, the dragon dropped from the sky like a thunderbolt, landing squarely between the attacking mage and Kayla's group. Everyone froze, staring in disbelief. The dragon had just blocked Curdly's fatal attack, like a giant, scaly, unexpected plot twist. Chapter 24, A Dragon's Sacrifice. Curdly paused her spell, perplexed by the dragon's sudden intervention. Before she could fully process it, the massive creature slammed into her shield, sending shockwaves through the air. Kella found himself pressed against the dragon's flank, utterly confused by the turn of events. Their eyes met for an instant, and a flood of unfamiliar images poured into Kayla's mind, the dragon's memories. He saw a smiling, white-haired woman, instantly recognizing her as his mother. The realization hit him. This ancient dragon knew his mother, sharing bittersweet and tender moments with her long ago. A powerful voice echoed directly in Kayla's thoughts, urging him to run away. He recoiled, startled, questioning if he was actually hearing the dragon's voice. The dragon then opened its maw and spat out a small, glowing orb that looked suspiciously like a giant cough drop. Kayla caught the object reflexively, demanding to know what it was. The dragon identified it as its clairvoyant stone. Kayla, bewildered, asked why the dragon would give him such a precious item. The dragon explained there was no time for lengthy explanations, instructing him to hide his power and flee immediately. Kayla processed the warning. Hide his powers and run? From whom besides the obvious ice mage? The dragon growled again, emphasizing the urgent need to hurry. Turning its attention back to Curdly, the dragon unleashed a torrent of searing fire. Curdly maintained her shield, observing the fiery blast with a mixture of surprise and calculation. The situation was undeniably strange. A dragon actively protecting a demon was highly unusual. Kellen knew he couldn't waste the opportunity the dragon was providing. He yelled for Sriles, Rin, and Wood to run while they had the chance. Curdly watched them retreat, momentarily pondering the powerful dragon's motives for interfering now. This unexpected variable gave her much to consider. The dragon roared again, continuing its relentless fiery assault against Curdly's shield. From within her defense, Curdly coolly assessed the attack, questioning if that was the dragon's best effort. She decided it was time to exert herself a little more seriously. A complex magic circle materialized high above, coalescing into a massive chunk of ice. A meteor spell aimed directly at the dragon. The dragon met the descending ice meteor with another powerful blast of fire. Its eye held a fierce determination, perhaps flashing back to a peaceful memory of Kella's mother. Resting against its side before hardening once more, Curdly's spell proved overwhelming. A massive spike of ice broke through the dragon's defense, impaling the creature and sending it crashing heavily to the ground, mortally wounded. Curdly landed near the fallen beast, finding the entire situation increasingly bizarre. Deciding to probe its memories before it expired, she reached out a hand, but the dragon wasn't finished. Its eye flared with incandescent rage, and Curdly instinctively recoiled. A final, telepathic curse against the cruelty of humans echoed from the dying dragon, warning of a future reckoning before it erupted in a self-detonating inferno. The explosion scorched the earth, leaving behind only remnants of ice and Curdly standing alone in the devastation. She realized the dragon had chosen to end its own life, a final act that bought Kelepresh his time to hide his presence and escape. This development was troublesome, Curdly admitted, examining a glowing blue tracking charm. Still, she remained confident, murmuring that this sacrifice wouldn't change Kellekalden's fate. He was destined, she declared to the empty forest, releasing glowing butterfly-like tracking constructs to die by the hands of the white Talkans. Having escaped immediate danger, the group caught their breath amongst the rocky cliffs. Rin voiced everyone's confusion about the dragon's erratic behavior, attacking one moment, saving them the next. Shrills corrected her, pointing out the dragon seemed specifically focused on aiding Kayla, noting its appearance coincided with Kayla using his demonic power, and asked if he knew why. Kayla explained a brief connection, revealing he'd glimpsed the dragon's memories and believed it had known his mother in the past. Rin found this perplexing, given the usual animosity between dragons and demons, and mused about their unknown history. Kayla admitted he didn't know the details, only sensing a bittersweet feeling from the fragmented memories. Sriles then reminded Kayla the dragon had given him something. He produced the glowing red orb, the clairvoyant stone. Both Rin and Sriles reacted with astonishment, recognizing the rare artifact, and finding it incredible that the dragon saved them and gifted such a treasure. Shrills thoughtfully suggested that perhaps they were just saved by Kayla's mother, the former queen, acting through her old friend. Kayla clenched the stone, pondering the deep connection he'd sensed in the dragon's eyes and its relationship with his mother. Regardless, acknowledging their luck, he offered the stone to Wood, stating he should take it. Shrills interjected with urgency, reminding them the Talcan of White were actively hunting them. They needed to prepare. Wood hesitated, questioning if it was truly okay for him to accept such an incredibly rare item. Kella insisted, stating Wood was the only one who could use it, and urged him to consume it quickly. Accepting the gift, Wood placed the stone in his mouth and swallowed, He gasped, startled, then cried out as crimson energy flared from his eyes, overwhelming his senses, was plunged into the dragon's millennia-long memories. He witnessed its birth as a captive, a mere lab rat for cruel human experiments. Robed figures inflicted endless pain, disregarding its suffering entirely. Day after day, generation after generation, they tore its body apart for their research, healing it just before death only to begin the cycle anew. After centuries of unimaginable torture, its spirit broke. It gave up hope. Its tormentors even noted its silence, mockingly calling it an achievement. Resigned to death, its prison suddenly shook violently. Turk Khaldun, a fearsome demon king, was invading the human stronghold. Amidst the chaos, the laboratory collapsed, and the dragon found itself unexpectedly freed. It escaped the hellish facility, finally experiencing the exhilaration of soaring through the open sky. Seeking its own kind, it recounted the horrors inflicted by humans, urging fellow dragons to ally with the demons against their common tormentors. But its pleas fell on deaf ears. The other dragons refused to believe its tale. They had already established strong ties with humans, aiding them in conflicts against demons. The dragon realized, horrified, that few understood this alliance was built upon the suffering of dragons, sacrificed in experiments just like itself. Experiments designed to help humans understand and harness draconic power and magic. This harsh truth was rejected, overshadowed by the existing hostility towards demons. The other dragons viewed it with suspicion, believing it sought only to harm humans. Ostracized and alone, it belonged nowhere. Not with humans, not demons, not even its own kind. It despaired, questioning the very purpose of its miserable existence. It retreated into isolation, dwelling in endless darkness and solitude, passively awaiting its end. It was a worse fate than listening to K-pop on repeat forever. This bleak existence continued until one day, a small crying demon girl stumbled upon its refuge. The girl, Kella's mother, careezed as a child, looked up with tear-filled eyes and called out, "Mommy!" The dragon was taken aback. The little girl ran forward, clinging to its snout and sobbing inconsolably. Gently, the dragon told her it wasn't her mother. And in that moment of unexpected connection, the dragon realized it might have finally found its reason for being.